Hello everyone, welcome to a new chess video. In this video, I'm going to show you the Trompowsky attack, an attack that will make you win the game in very few moves. And pay attention, because you're going to pull it off in two moves. And that's it, just two moves. When you play d4 and they play knight f6, which is the most common response, and also, don't worry, when they play d5, you'll be able to perform this attack. The Trompowsky attack starts with this wonderful move right here. This is simply going to be an absolutely incredible recipe that will give your opponents a constant, massive headache. Let's enjoy it by showing this incredibly powerful attack right here that honestly, I'm completely sure will totally blow your mind and leave you speechless. Notice one thing. First, we have to evaluate a very interesting move when we perform this Trompowsky attack, attacking the knight. The black pieces don't want to double pawns, and there's a move, which is the first one we'll analyze, which is knight e5, which is a very annoying move. Notice that it attacks our bishop and forces us to move it again. Well, you have to remember this move right here. If they directly attack the knight, the bishop, we're going to give it away with this pawn move. And notice that here, black is going to rub their hands together. They'll think, first, I'm winning the bishop pair. How incredible! Second, I'm doubling your pawns. That's why. Oh, and if we also add that this knight here is very unstable, they're going to capture in every game, okay? Once they capture this knight, you just have to recapture it, okay? It seems like nothing happened here. We lost the bishop pair, they doubled our pawns, but still, be careful, because there's danger in the position. Look, a very logical move, e6. Why? Because now they can develop this bishop, and besides, they attack this pawn that seems so defenseless here with the queen. Well, what if I told you that the wonderful move here isn't to defend this pawn, but to advance it and give it away? Pay attention, because this move is much more powerful than you think. Notice one thing, this pawn can be captured in two ways. We're giving it away. If they capture with the rook pawn, they've directly lost the rook. Why? Because it's not defended. Notice that the pawns have up and down. So now we know one thing. We're giving this pawn away, but with this pawn, it can't be given. I can't be eaten. A little trap that no one will fall for, right? But if someone falls for it, well, we take the rook. So which pawn should they capture with? Well, they're forced to capture with this pawn, because if they don't, we'll capture, and look, we're going to take away their castling. Not only will they fail to win the pawn, but they'll also be left devastated. So they have to capture. And then we notice that we're going to take advantage of this very weak structure of the black pieces, where, sorry, their king won't be safe at all, and we'll play e3. A move where you say, wait, chess teacher, that's a very passive move. Since when on this channel do we play such passive moves? Well, take it easy. Take it easy. Now our opponent can play just about anything. For example, pieces they can develop like this knight, this bishop, we don't care what they do, okay? Imagine that this king here is very scary, right? It's very scary to have this king right here. So they want to develop this bishop anywhere to be able to castle and at least use the file. That's the most logical thing for the black pieces to think. So come on, you and I are going to think about where this bishop can go. Can it go here? It looks like a very bad move, because after c3, they'd be losing a tempo. They'd have to retreat it, right? Fine, it can't go here. Then here seems like a very bad move, because it blocks this pawn here, right? So the most logical move, I'm sure you're with me, is bishop e7, a totally natural developing move that even in the future can come to defend the castled king, right? So bishop e7 is the most logical move here to be able to castle. So we continue attacking here, right? We bring the bishop here. Watch out! If they get distracted here and play a move other than castling, look, for example, knight c6, we simply take this pawn with check and they can't capture. Because remember what I told you, right? This pawn can't move. And many people, when we play bishop d3, don't realize the real threat. Bishop takes pawn, check. Notice that now, if they do this, we'd take here and they'd lose the right to castle. They'd have to place the king here, so they'd be in a terrible position. What they don't know is that as much as they fall for this trick, they're going to lose. But even if they castle, they've lost anyway, because we have a spectacular move that will give you goosebumps. Rook takes pawn, and we win the game. Spectacular rook sacrifice. And you'll tell me, chess teacher, but here they can take your rook and you have no pieces to attack. Well, watch out, because now it's time to enter with our beautiful queen. Check. And since this pawn can't move because we have it pinned with the bishop on d3, the queen can't be captured. Instead, the king has to move. And now we simply enter with the bishop, bishop takes pawn, and notice that right now this king is in a checkmate situation. On the next move, we're going to enter with the queen, and we're going to give a tremendous checkmate. There's no way to save themselves. Haven't seen this line from the beginning? Now comes the most interesting part of this video. And we're going to see what happens if when we play d4, they play d5. Watch these lines because they are tremendously spectacular. We'll start, of course, by playing our bishop over here, okay? Notice one thing. I've checked the database. I'm just saying this as a fact, eh? I'm not saying it's going to happen to you. But more than 500,000 players here, directly, without thinking, have played e6, hanging the queen. So, well, look, this is what you get if you ever catch someone from this 500,000 people who accidentally play e6. You've won the game immediately by taking the queen, right? But this isn't the interesting part. What happens if they keep playing knight f6? In this case, the whole story changes, right? If you've played a double queen's pawn first and then they've placed the knight on f6, think about one thing. You must capture this knight, okay? And now let's look at the attack plans because they're just too incredible. As I always tell you, think the plan through. Don't just memorize the moves by heart. They have to capture this bishop here. Obviously, it seems like a right move is to capture with the e-pawn, because notice that if they capture with the g-pawn, when they castle, right, this king is going to be left wide open, yeah? So this bishop should be captured with the e-pawn, logically, okay? Let's continue with some natural moves. As our plan indicates, we're going to play e3. Look at this, huh? The slight difference right at the start of this line is that our opponent has a much weirder structure than we do, right? It's true, we've sacrificed the bishop pair, but that was the whole idea of placing the bishop here, yeah? You'll see how the attack unfolds, because we're not going to need the bishop pair. Very well, they might play, for example, bishop d6. This is the best square for the dark squared bishop. Why? Because it'll be aiming directly at the castled king, right? As we said, here we directly play c3 and kick it out, and it would have to go back here. We've gained a tempo, yeah? So if they play here, it would also be fine. The attack would work exactly the same, and if they play here, well, we'll stick with the same plan. Notice one thing. Now I'm going to show you the attack plan that's going to fascinate you. You don't have to get hung up on the moves the opponent makes, okay? Just focus on the plan, because it doesn't matter what they do, yeah? Here we're going to play c4. Does this structure look familiar? It looks like the Queen's Gambit structure, right? For those of you who are a bit more professional, well, that's the idea. What's our idea here now when we play c4? Well, if you've ever seen my video, for example, on the Kali system, I explained that when these two pawns are threatening to advance here, it's super important that when playing c4, c6 is played. Do you know why or huh? Because this bishop wants to be on this diagonal, right? If we play c4 and they castle, for example, now after this move, this bishop will never be able to be on the diagonal at once, and it'll have to retreat. That's why it's extremely important, and keep this in mind for when they do it to you too. When they push here to threaten coming here, you must play c6 and c3 if you're white, huh? But this is essential, because now if they play this move here, the bishop simply retreats and absolutely nothing has happened because it's still here, right? So obviously we're not going to play c5 because it's useless, okay? So what are we going to play? How should we continue, chess teacher? Well, by developing our pieces, for example, we'll develop this knight over here, knight c3, threatening right now to capture this pawn here. You see it, right? Right now, if they don't react, we'd have pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn. No matter how much they try to make this jump from here, we'd be covering it with the knight. So this knight couldn't be recaptured with the queen. They'd be losing a pawn. That's why, what are we threatening with knight c3? We're threatening to capture the pawn. The most logical move for black to avoid losing a pawn is to capture that pawn themselves. Then we develop our bishop by recapturing the traded pawn. The best part of this attack is that we don't sacrifice material. We have a better position without sacrificing material. And pay attention because you haven't seen the best part yet, okay? What can the black pieces do? They have several moves at their disposal, but you'll agree with me that now this point is starting to be a little weak. The most normal thing is for them to start castling, right? And at least they protect this point well. They defend themselves well. Well, yes, very logical, and we'll continue developing. Notice that we must follow our plan. We develop our pieces naturally, and now a move that's a mistake, watch out. A move as natural as pinning this knight, which I'm sure they do to you in almost every game, right? Playing this bishop pinning the knight, here it's already a mistake, not because of the pin itself, but because they don't address the threat, okay? We've placed the pieces very well, and it's practically impossible to save themselves. Here, the first thing you should do is kick this bishop out. And now I ask you, my friends, what happens if they capture this knight? Should we capture with the queen or with the pawn? Indeed, we must capture with the pawn. Even though it seems very strange, capturing with the queen always seems much better. In this case, capturing with the pawn would help us launch an attack down this file here directly toward the king. See, the pieces are pointing toward the king. We can push this pawn, and this attack would be very strong. So if in any of your games, when you try to kick this bishop out, they capture this knight, I recommend you be aggressive and push this pawn. Then, when you advance this pawn, the queen can also come in, and the consequences would be drastic with the rook, the queen, and everything together, right? But it's true that here, most players don't capture this knight because it's a bit of a deficient move, let's say, okay? Because they're giving away their bishop pair for a knight that for now isn't doing anything, right? So the most normal thing is for them to pull back and maintain the pin. And now I'm going to recommend this lightning fast attack. Although normally this move is very dangerous because we have the king uncastled. Careful, careful. We might be weakening ourselves a lot. Look at one thing. Now we can afford this huge attack simply because the king is in the center, very well protected by this pawn chain. And even more importantly, our attack is going to be super strong because we have the bishop pointing at the castled position. These pawns are going to be pushed, and this rook is going to be placed on the file. And I'm going to show you how to continue because it's striking, okay? And watch out. I'm not telling you this just because. I've tested it with the engine. No, watch out. I've played this opening on many occasions in tournaments, okay? In official tournaments. And I know how people respond because I've studied it well. That's why I'm giving it to all of you, so that just by watching this video, you'll save many hours of study, okay? Look at this. We're going to keep attacking this bishop with the knight, okay? This bishop can't go anywhere. That's why they've already lost their bishop pair. But that's not the most important thing. What matters is the attack plan we have. Whatever our opponent does, whatever they do, okay? Notice they don't have many options either. Developing the knight here because I can't go this way, right? Let's capture this bishop. Notice that here they only have one possible move because this pawn can never recapture thanks to this powerful bishop we have on c4, the Italian bishop, as the bishop on c4 is called. It's always aiming at the weakest point of the position. So if they can't take with this one, they'll have to take with this one. And very well. They have a very defensive square, to be honest. It seems very hard to break, but I'm going to show you how to break it very easily, okay? All we have to do now is launch our pawns. Little by little, we launch the H-pawn. Notice I'm explaining it simply so that everyone can understand it. And if I'm going too fast, I apologize. I'm doing my best, okay? We launch our two pawns. And now, how can they defend? Well, notice that for now, the best thing is to do nothing, because if they advance these pawns, they weaken themselves. For example, a totally natural move, in this case, could be moving the queen, or it could be attacking this bishop. If they attack this bishop, what did I tell you before it? We're going to maintain the diagonal. So all we'd have to do is come here and our plan is still in place. Notice you shouldn't memorize this move, right? Because if you memorize moves, you'll say, oh yes, I have to do this one. Nah, you just stick with the plan. Our bishop wants to be here. If they attack it, well, we keep it on the diagonal we want, right? Imagine that, for example, they play queen e7, a natural move, wanting to come towards the king. They can't do much more either, right? They just need to move the queen, and then we're going to launch the attack directly with h5. Notice this attack seems to go very slowly, but we've already won the game. What are we threatening now? We're threatening pawn takes pawn. And notice that it couldn't be recaptured again thanks to this monster here that's attacking the king directly. So black has to react. If they don't react, we capture and win here, so they have to react. It would be very dangerous to advance because look at this. We break through here and we have the rook. They couldn't stop it in any way. Notice the queen could enter through here and there'd be no way to stop it. So the only solution they have left is to capture this pawn. It seems like nothing's happening because the pawn was doubled. And once they capture this pawn, what should we do, chess teacher? Well, very simple. We have a star move. We could recapture with the rook, we could recapture with the pawn, but much more refined, queen d3 winning the game. Why? Because look how it's aiming directly at this point right here. If this pawn is captured, it's checkmate. That's why this pawn can't be taken right now, and the solutions are starting to be, sorry, I can't talk, very scarce for the black pieces. It seems the only way to defend is this one here, and they've lost instantly after the wonderful move queen takes pawn, check. Notice that this queen can never be recaptured because we have this bishop here, and we've won the game when the king moves by simply entering with the rook. Look at that brutal checkmate. I'll show you how to smash this castled position thanks to the pawn advance. Much simpler than it looks. Chess teacher, but what happens if right when we play the bishop here, they try to start kicking it all over the board? Well, the truth is that this is a serious mistake, okay? It's a very serious mistake. However, if you know it's a serious mistake but don't know how to punish it, they'll do it and you won't know how to win the game. That's why you need to know how to punish it. It's very simple, but anyway, I'll show you just in case, right? We're gonna retreat this bishop, and we'll retreat it here. Why won't we retreat it somewhere else? Because here we're tempting them to start attacking this bishop, okay? Absolutely nothing happens. Notice that we have this bishop on g3 on a very powerful diagonal directly hitting this fairly weak point because it's only defended by the queen. And look how they've significantly weakened their king side. That's what we're going to take advantage of to destroy them, okay? Whenever this pawn moves, something bad happens. Both the f7 pawn and the f2 pawn, candidates for not moving too much, okay? But anyway, how do I punish this, chess teacher? Well, it's very simple. We could directly break through here, smash the pawn structure, open the rook. Yes, all of this would be possible. However, there's a much stronger move when they open up the king side, which is simply to play the move e4, okay? With ideas of attacking here, with ideas of attacking the center. Now, very simple. That's not the idea, right? Let's assume black plays first here, okay? I'll show you the idea. For example, any move, knight c6, a totally normal move. We directly break with e4. Why? As I said, it's not to attack here, but to open up this queen's diagonal. Notice that the king here is very exposed, okay? Very, very exposed, and there's no way to cover up, no way to cover up with any piece. That's why no matter what our opponent does, we're going to launch a very powerful attack. Practically, the best move they have here is to capture this pawn we just gave away, okay? e4 is better than e3, yes, because that way we also put pressure here. Even if they capture this pawn, very simple. We come in with the queen to give a massive check to the king, who, notice, has to flee because there's no way to cover with any piece. The knight can't move like that, and the bishop is on dark squares. So when he moves away, it's very, very simple. We continue developing our pieces. For example, knight c3. The king here is very easy to exploit. Many of you will say, yeah, this is very easy, but I'm sure you don't know how to take advantage of it. Pay attention. Here is how to use it. Once we develop the knight, black has limited options. The plan remains the same regardless of what they do. If they capture this pawn, why? Because at least they say, yeah, I have a worse position, but at least I'm up 2 pawns. Then we simply castle queenside. Look how satisfying it is to castle queenside with these pieces. We pin this knight to the king and the queen. They can't do absolutely anything. After the long castle, they're in a tough spot. Ideas for the black pieces, for example, defending this knight because it can't move. You see it, right? And when they defend it, for example, we come in with this bishop to give check. Notice how our pieces coordinate. The knight can't capture because the rook is there. The king can't come here or here because the bishop is there. The king can't come here because the other bishop is there. So the king only has one square, which is to come over here. Look at how our pieces coordinate in a wonderful way. We bring the knight to f3, giving it away twice. We offer it with both the knight and the pawn. It can't be captured with the knight because look, our rook is staring right at the queen. But chess teacher, what happens if it's captured with the pawn? Well, we simply open lines to enter with the other rook, and look at what a wonderful position, where the black pieces can no longer save themselves from anything. We're attacking with everything, with both bishops, the queen, both rooks, and the knight. And all black has done is place the king in the center of the board. Just in case, I'll show you how to punish it. What do you think? The most important part of the video, boys and girls. We've seen what happens if they make serious mistakes. But what if the black pieces play the Trompowsky attack perfectly? If, when making this wonderful move right here, the Trompowsky attack, they play e6, undoubtedly the best move for the black pieces. So pay attention. The good thing about this attack is that no matter how perfectly they play, our attack is extremely powerful. How are we going to continue here, chess teacher, if they play e6, the best move in the position? Why is it the best move in the position? Let's understand it. Because simply, one, you can't capture this knight, because they'd simply have the queen and pawns. Wouldn't be doubled anymore, okay? And two, very important. I don't even know what I was going to say anymore. I don't even know what I was going to say anymore, friends. But anyway, e6 is the best move in the position. I have so many things in my head that they slip away quickly. Pay attention to this. How should we react if black plays perfectly? The good move is e4. Notice that now we're threatening a terrible threat, e5, and winning this knight, right? Because it couldn't move because we have this very strong pin. So e4 seems to give away the pawn, but it's untouchable for the same reason we'd win the queen. So how to break the pin? Very logical. Bishop e7. Exactly. Bishop e7 is the best move. It's very passive. Note that this bishop can't come here, or it's forced back. It can't come here. It can't come here because it would lose a piece super brutally, because it would lose this one, lose this one. So the best move is bishop e7. Say no more. So if they play bishop e7, how do I proceed? Just apply this tremendous pressure. They've made logical moves, and the position already feels suspicious. We're pressing way too hard. All right, black can come here, and notice one thing. Watch out, they're attacking this bishop. If I capture here, they'll take back with the queen, and we're not doing so well. Pay attention to the good move, and I want you to remember this one, retreating the bishop to d2. It seems like the weirdest move in the world. I'm aware of that. We've moved a bishop and now we're retreating, but it's fine because we've achieved, this is studied in theory, we've achieved this strong pawn center so far advanced that it restricts our opponent's position and our attack will come soon. Pay attention to one thing. Here, for the black pieces, the best option they have, if they don't want to castle quickly, notice that they have no defense here, and this pawn is restricting the knight's best square to defend the castle. They can first try to free up the position a bit against this strong center, and they should do it, okay? c5. How should we react if they play c5? Notice that if we take, we improve this bishop, right? So we don't want to take, but we don't want to let them take either. Because if we let them take, first we lose a pawn, and if we defend it, we've lost the support for this pawn here. So, chess teacher, this doesn't look great, does it? How should I continue? It's simple. This position is completely winning for the white pieces. It's a light and fast attack. c4, an intermediate move. Okay, intermediate move. We attack this knight right here. This knight, where does it have to go? We don't care at all. Let's assume it comes here, but any other square, well, it only has here or here, because if it comes here, it gets into trouble, right? We attack here, we attack there, it gets into quite a bit of trouble. So it only has here and here. We don't care, okay? Now what we're gonna do is capture this pawn. Now we do want to capture this pawn before they capture it, and now I'll explain why. It's true they can capture with a bishop, but now we have some very, very good prospects. What's happening here? Well, it's very simple. Notice that this flank isn't being defended by anyone. All of them, if we split the board in half, this is a trick for your games. You split the board in half and look at where the opponent's pieces are. They're all here. So I'm going to attack on the other side. This move is excellent, okay? This move is incredible. Queen g4, brutal. We're hitting this point here, and there are no pieces to come and defend. So the only thing they can do is, for example, let's see, if they play king f8, they lose the right to castle, right? It seems like a pretty bad move. They lose the castle. We're hitting here in a bad way. We'll develop the knights, the bishops, and this position is going to tend toward a loss. But anyway, no one is going to play king fate against you. If they play this rook over here, what can we do? Well, the situation starts to be quite similar. Okay? They won't be able to castle. They're facing a pawn threat that doesn't seem too serious. We can move the bishop here, which they can't take because we'd capture the rook, and if they push forward, we control all the dark squares, and it looks like they're done for, right? So many of you are thinking, well, then the most logical move, without a doubt, is to protect it by castling. And that's what they'll do almost every time. Yeah, it doesn't matter what they do. Whether they move the king, a rook, or if they castle, you've already won, okay? But if they castle, which is the most logical, how can we win quickly? Well, with the typical bishop attack, We take advantage of the queen pinning the king so this bishop can't be taken, and we're threatening checkmate in just one move. How do you defend against this checkmate? There's absolutely no way to defend it. The only way to avoid checkmate is to move the pawn here. We weaken all the dark squares, and not only that, but they're basically giving us the rook. It's the only way to defend against the checkmate. That's why it's so powerful. And to finish in style, I'm going to show you how to punish the dark squares. A masterclass on what to do if they don't play here or castle, but play g6 to defend all this. It looks like nothing's happening here. But they've gotten themselves into huge trouble. And I'm going to show you, as I said, a masterclass on how to brutally punish the dark squares. And it could all start, as many of you might suggest, with the bishop here, right? Attacking the queen, that makes sense. Or with the bishop over here trying to prevent him from castling. All of this is very logical, okay? Because you're already thinking about how to exploit the dark squares. But what if I told you that you have a spectacular move here, which is knight c3? You'll say, chess teacher, now you've finally gone completely crazy. You have a spectacular attack on the dark squares, and you play knight c3? Seriously? Yes, friends, pay attention to how we're going to blow these dark squares wide open. Knight c3, trust me on this. My friends, just trust me. It doesn't matter what our opponent does here, we really don't care. Imagine they play knight c6 attacking this pawn, which would also attack our queen. Fine, I don't care at all. This knight is here to save, to jump, to e4, and look at the control it has over the dark squares right now. This knight was the key to finally crushing the dark squares. We don't care what they do to us. For example, the best move undoubtedly seems to be knight takes pawn. While they're attacking our queen, okay? We're gonna ignore this queen, right? That's not what we're interested in, so what are we gonna do? Notice that now we have the knight ready, plus the bishop's ready. Look, we'll ignore the queen, but move it first. We aren't that crazy. We'll pull it back, but where? Right here, okay? We're going to pull it back here, and you'll see the idea behind moving it here in a moment. It's not just about putting pressure on the knight, though that's part of it. Notice that now, first, we attack the knight. Second, we attack the bishop. Two pieces are under attack. There's only one way to defend both. Not here, or we capture. The only way is moving here. Placing the queen here wasn't about the knight. The plan was much more powerful. You're about to see it. First, we come into attack with the bishop. Now, this move was already expected. It had to come, sorry, right? This queen's being attacked. She has to move. And now, the master move, which is why we move the queen back here. Look at this move right here. Queen a3, and we win the game with this move. A wonderful move where we threaten very easily. We threaten this checkmate if it were our turn here again, giving him the kiss of death. Did you know this one? The kiss of death? When the queen gives checkmate in front of the king, right in front, it's the kiss of death, because the queen is kissing the king, right? Spectacular. How can they defend? Well, not many ways, right? Maybe the only one, it seems, is coming with the knight here to defend this spot. And besides, they're defended now with the bishop by moving the knight, this knight jump. But all we have to do is jump to the other side. Look at this spectacular jump now. Check. The king can't come here or here. Why? Because we have the bishop. So the king's only move, what is it? King F. There's no other move. And how do we finish this here? Well, with the wonderful move knight b5, discovered check with the queen. And on the next one, we're going to capture this queen. Notice that the king must move. And now, look how nice. We capture the queen with the knight, check, we'll take the rook. Eventually, we're going to end up giving mate if we kick out this knight. So this is spectacular. Look at the Trompowsky attack, huh? You didn't expect it, right? That it would be so beautiful and so powerful, right? Well, yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you like this type of video, the only way you have to support me a lot, to thank me, since I do it completely for free, is to leave me a like. Come on, let's see if we can set a record for likes. And of course, we'll see you tomorrow with another spectacular chess video on this channel. See you tomorrow, guys. Bye.